this one. We're going to record this one as well. So I know Bruce Leali. Bruce, I see you. Good morning. Glad to have you with us. Is going to be sharing with us today the second step. So here's the thing, guys. I talked about this last Friday, or actually I talked about it 2 Fridays ago. I reminded you this past Friday. We'll talk about it again this coming Friday. There are 8 steps in the process to your effectiveness, your efficiency, your success in the field. There are certain things that you can do, rhythmatic, that if you do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, if you do these 8 things, like success is a no-brainer. It comes through osmosis. It comes through following a system that works. Step 1 was planning. You know, we talk about this all the time. Proper planning prevents poor performance. That's the first step, is to get the plan in place. But now, what do I do that I have a game plan? Now, what do I do now that I know where I'm going to be this week? And here it is Friday, preparing for next week. Here it is Monday, finalizing this week. Like, what are the things I need to be doing to ensure success on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday? And the things that I do in these 8-step processes, the ownership that I take in each of these 8 steps, will determine my final result. I promise you, it will determine your final result. So with that, the first step is getting the plan. And now the second step, which is the first step in actual setting plans, is extraction of leads. Yes, there is a right way and a wrong way to extract leads. As a matter of fact, I've got a good friend who lives in, Bruce, you're in Missouri. There is a better way to go to Missouri. I can get to Missouri by going through California. I could take I-10 and run it till it ends, head north a little bit, turn and go east, and find Bruce in Missouri. There's a lot of wasted time in that, guys. So the proper plan and following the process that works, that's most efficient and most effective, I promise you, will get you what you're after quicker and with a lot more ease. So, Bruce, I try to be respectful of this. I'm 4 minutes in already. We do the best we can to hold this as close to a 30-minute window as we can. I've got a couple other people that are still trying to get in. A good-looking room, guys. A lot of you, I see several of y'all are riding together, so we're too deep in a lot of the vehicles here. Hey, if you're driving, keep your eyes on the road. If you're riding or if you're parked, make sure you got pad and pen. And Bruce, I'm going to let you unmute. I'm going to mute my mic and let you take over.
All right. Good morning, everybody. You are tuned in to your weekly training segments on Thursdays. I know, of course, Gerald did a wonderful job really diving into what we've got to do to make sure that we're utilizing the 4-week forecast and the 10 blocks of time to stay focused. All right. We've got a lot going on, but there should be the 10 blocks of time is designed to give you that one document to let you know exactly what your business is looking like over the next several weeks. So now that we've got a 10 blocks of time, how do we really stay ahead of the game, right? How do we start figuring out what markets or what areas we really want to start getting into? And now what I'm about to cover with you is, again, something that you really want to get into within your after the 90-day mark or sooner. But it's super important because we're professionals. I'm sure we can agree on that. So let's dive right into it. When it comes to exporting leads in Epic, it's not just a matter of going in, looking at a map, taking a look at a couple of cities in the area, and then jumping into it, right? You really want to start thinking like a business owner. And in order for you to do that, you want to do a few things. And we're going to talk about a couple of best practices. And we're going to start off with just taking a look at some data approaches to the markets that we're going into. So the first thing I really want to talk about is identifying new markets. What are some of the best practices? Number one, you got to analyze the labor market. What does that look like? Right? So when I'm looking at a map, and let's say I've got, within a 90 mile or 120 mile radius, I like to drive a little bit of a distance, right? I don't typically, human nature is let's try to stay as local as possible. And although that is, something that can work, we can definitely take it a step above, because when you're willing to do what most aren't willing to do, you'll get what most don't have. All right. So we've really got to make sure we're getting our mind dialed in. So typically, best practice number one, when you're looking around, you want to get into that hour and a half, 2 hours out to start getting into these markets that most people aren't willing to go, and that's just the fair truth on it. So when I've identified the cities, I want to analyze the labor market. Okay, and a couple of things you want to do is you want to take a look at the unemployment rates. Right, this is important because when you're prospecting in cities with low unemployment, the labor markets there start to really drive more towards competitive benefits. That's just what the data is telling us. So by taking a look at what those unemployment rates are, it's just going to give you a little bit way of dialing in on the process of elimination. Or not just that, but who should I start with first? Where should I go? The next thing you want to do is you want to prioritize niche markets, right? Really taking a look at the geographical areas of these, because what we're wanting to do is concentrate our efforts on specifying cities that can establish yourself in by understanding what the layout is. It's super, super important. This is what business owners are doing on a regular basis to make sure that they are going into the right areas and making the most of it as soon as possible, right? So that's another one. You want to target specific industry types. We talk about the blue market all the time. Instead of casting a wide net, you want to focus on industries with high demand for benefits, and blue collar is what that market is. Now, we do have some white collared industries in there, but one of the biggest things you want to do is you want to just make sure that you're being intentional when exporting leads, because a lot of the times what people do is they just go in, select all, export it all, and then go that way. But you want to be intentional in these areas. Okay. So the other thing you want to do is focus on the business size. Okay. I know the 5 to 9, we love those. Okay. And I know some people love to go for the 500 employee cases, right? They want to go, hey, I want to close this big 1,000-man case, 500 men. If you're within your first, I would say 6 months, even going into the first 3 months, you want to keep it within, I would say, 50 or less. Okay, 50 employees or less. So you could definitely do that you could set that filter in there where you're getting to these smaller businesses on a regular basis, and you're not spending time on these larger ones a lot of the time, because those are going to take time, right? There's a process to getting those in there. So I'm just giving you some best practices mentally when you're going in and attacking this and making sure that you're getting the best out of it. So now that we understand how to have the mindset, right? So analyzing the market, what does that look like? Taking a look at the niche markets, industry types, right? Let's say you've had a history with landscaping companies or some other mechanic companies. These little things you can definitely add into your exportation of leads, but that's super, super important to take into this. The other thing we want to know is, where do we find the data? There's a lot of sources out there that you can use as a professional to really start honing in on your craft, right? I know most of you are like, okay, what am I going to learn about exporting leads? This is the biggest thing right now, is how can we take our exportation of leads from just going in and looking at a map, pulling leads, to going in and getting into the data. What do these markets tell us? And how do we know how to maneuver through these before we really start spending a lot of our effort in it? Okay. So you want to utilize the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. Okay. This, of course, gives you, of course, a plethora of information, but you can go up into the search bar on the top right and look up your states or the city that you're looking at. So you could say, Springfield, Missouri, unemployment rate. I'm going to show you a quick example of what that looks like here in just a moment, but it gives you tons of information of what that city looks like. And these are things that Sales Genie doesn't give you, or Data Axle doesn't give you. So the other thing you can use is publicly available demographic data. So you can utilize websites like Policy Map or the U.S. Census Bureau. These are also great, credible sources to give you just great insights on economic conditions. What does the labor layout look like? What percentage of what is in that particular market? Because that's how we're going to be targeting certain areas and be professionals about doing it. Okay. So One of the other tools I want to provide for you, and of course, many of you already know this, but Chat GPT. Okay, how many of you guys know Chat GPT? Show of hands. Yeah, baby. Whoa, come on. Listen, it's efficient. It works. I did a search on my phone looking for cities that have low unemployment rates, and it gave me 14 different cities that I could immediately start researching. I can immediately start getting into, right? So you can go in and manually do all of this, or you can utilize some of these new efficient ways of getting more out of your areas. Okay. So just make sure that you're utilizing all of these sources to just make your exporting technique sharper. All right. So this is just an example of the information that you're going to be able to have access to, right? So this one right here tells you the unemployment rates, and it breaks it down. You can see in the city of Springfield as a whole, there's 3.9%. And then you can even break it up into counties. Now that I know what counties have what kind of unemployment rate, I can then go in and start searching by county in Epic or in Data Axle. And now I'm attacking it that way, right? Now, not only that, but if you look over to the right-hand side, it gives me a full breakdown of the employment within certain industry types in that area. I'm looking at education, right? You got transportation, trade, utilities, 53.6% right there. That is, and it tells you kind of like what has the change been year over year, right? In 2024 to 2025, there's been an increase in the construction business by 3.5% in Springfield, Missouri. How's that going to help me? Well, that is my market. That is what I need. That is where I need to be in. So these are just the additional tips and tricks to helping you get more insight on how to strategically go into given markets and not just leave it at a surface level and wonder why do I have a lot of these businesses that I'm pulling up that are white collared or they're just not eligible to do business with us. So something great that helped me out. So we talked about making sure we're identifying the markets. We talked about prioritizing niche markets. And then from there, we talked about where to find the data. And then I gave you an example of what kind of information you're going to have access to. Okay. Now, all of this information is downloadable. So you can keep it for personal record and you can review it over a period of time, or you could use this to, have some good conversation with your supervisors about, hey, here's what I'm seeing. What are your thoughts? Lots of good things here. Now that I've got my cities, okay, and I did my research and I've got where I wanted to go, I'm going to start filling out my 10 blocks of time. This is where I start going in and I'm being more intentional. So my 10 blocks of time, again, is where I start writing down the cities that I want to go to. My 4-week forecast is another tool that I may only have, cities for this week, but I want to be ahead of the game. Why don't I start filling out the weeks of October with cities that I'm already researching ahead of time, right? As a business owner, I want to encourage you, the Saturday and Sunday, you only need about an hour or two to just start digging into some of these, but it does, proper preparation prevents poor performance. And so with those extra couple of hours here and there, diving into what the markets look like, identifying the future of your business is just going to give you a lot more momentum going into the prospecting side of what we do. So the 4-week forecast is another great one that you can utilize to start, after, if you want to be exceptional and overachieving, grab the 4-week forecast, take a look at the map, identify some cities you want to research, go into these sources, and then from there, that'll give you a good idea of which one should go with first. Okay. Now, let's start going into the exportation side of it. Okay. There's going to be some small things that I really want to make sure that you all understand here. And, of course, you're going to go to Sales Genie Prospecting. Following this, you're going to start selecting the city. So you're going to go in and select the city based on your research that you've done on the 4-week forecast. You can start exporting. Here's the good news, because I've used my 4-week forecast and I've dialed in on the cities 4 weeks in advance or 3 weeks in advance. I know what cities I'm going to go to, right? Now, you can start exporting for these areas ahead of time, right? I know when I was an agent and I had to go in, sometimes if I didn't know what cities I would be going to, it would create a level of, how do I put this? It would create friction, right? It would delay. I would, I would go in through the week, tons of walk-ins. Then at the end of the week, I'm like, okay, now I've got to pull more leads. Well, you can get ahead of the game by already having all these already pulled and you're ready to go. So now when you're getting into the office on Monday, exportation of leads is going to be super important. Now, let me give you another example of why this is important. Traveling the country, going to agency, there's a couple of agents that I've run into that forgot to export the week before. Okay. Now, how does that affect your performance? You're now in the office on Monday, and now you're delaying your emotional momentum because we're waiting for the leads to be exported instead of just getting into the office, opening up the laptop, pulling up your leads from the map, and then start dialing. Right? That small delay that we have in not having leads exported before getting into the call clinic can make a big difference in becoming who you want to be and delaying that process exponentially. So just make sure, right? The 4-week forecast, thinking 4 weeks ahead, thinking about what cities you're going to be in the next 4 weeks, exporting those areas already. Right? I know some of us have a little bit of, there's some credits that we've got to make sure we're managing correctly. Some of us have a plethora of credits. You can utilize those credits to start getting ahead of the game, get those exported. And then from there, every Monday you're coming in, that delay is not slowing you down from you and your next increase in income. That is so big right there. Okay. So going back to where we are, selecting the city, I'm going in, I'm selecting, for this particular example, I used Adrian, Missouri. So once I've gone in and selected the city, you can select multiple cities at a time. Let's say you've already got your 4-week forecast and you want to just go in and select the cities already. Boom, boom, boom. You can export them all at once if you've got the credits to do so, and it just creates less friction. All right. Then over here to the right, I'm going to go ahead and click run search. Once I click run search, it's going to give me the records that I need to go in and select. Here's a pro tip, okay? Most people don't know this, but as you start to use Data Axle, if you click the 3 little dots up on the top right hand by the SIC code, it'll actually give you an option to select what columns you want to be displaying while you're going in and selecting your leads, okay? The one that says exported is not a default selection, meaning by going in there and selecting exported, it'll give you a column with an arrow pointing down, as you can see here on the left-hand side under right next to the little fire symbol. And then when you go back into export for that same area, it'll start notifying you which ones you've already exported. So you're not going to have to go in and click and find the ones that you want because you've already downloaded them, and that'll just save you some more time. Okay. So now that I've got my area, I'm going to go in and select the leads. Okay. I'm going to select the leads. I'm going to, again, going back to what we talked about in the beginning, I want to select them. I'm not just going to select all and export them all, right? I want to be intentional. I want to pick leads that match. So, I went in and I selected a few: 4x4 Brewing Co., 417 Endodontics, 27 North Incorporated Manufacturing Company here in Springfield, and then 3 LLC, right? Now, a couple of things here. I'm going to give you guys some insight here for you to take into the next training, which is the pack call session. The ones that don't have executive info, follow me on this. The ones that don't have executive info or don't have any names on them are highly avoided, all right? Most people don't download those, and I don't understand why. The reason why you want to still download those is because you can still get the information over the phone, and that'll be a walk-in that most people aren't going to go in. So when you're downloading, don't be afraid of downloading ones without the executive info. Let's be sure to go in and start with the script, confirm the address, let them know you don't have anyone currently as owner. Who is your owner currently? And then you're going to get that information, which then, of course, gives you access to a lead that is avoided. I'm just giving you the human nature of this. You may not be one that does this, but there are people out there that are avoiding these particular ones because the ones with the names, there's less resistance there, right? People try to take the path of less resistance. If you want to be that person that has access to others, go ahead and call these, get the information, and watch how it builds your momentum. All right. Now that I've selected my leads, we talk about exportation. We're going to go in and we're going to go ahead and select export up on the top left. Then we're going to go ahead and select Salesforce, export them to Salesforce. Now, last thing here, if your leads, right, let's say you come in on a Monday, or let's say you're double checking on a Sunday or on a Sunday night or a Thursday night before Friday call clinic, and you still didn't see your leads export, here's another pro tip I want to give everybody. You can actually go to your export history and without having to go back in and select all of the, go through all the clicks trying to get your leads back. If you go up here to the top right-hand side, as I've got here marked on menu, okay, you're then going to have a prompt that comes up, and then you're going to select exports. Okay. Once I've selected exports, it's going to give me all the cities that I've exported for, the quantity that I've exported. Okay. Once I do that, I'm going to click the three little dots over to the right-hand side of that row. And then I'm going to go ahead and click Salesforce once again to make sure I'm getting those exported without using any of my credits. Okay. Now, team, this was a short training, but I think it's super imperative, right? So the biggest summary, this is the biggest takeaways I want to give you. Number one, be intentional about the markets you're going into, right? When you first start, I get it. You want to go to a map. You got a couple of cities. You're just going to pull everything and anything. But to take this thing to the next level, we want to start getting into the data. So we talked about several sources that will help you get more out of what your efforts are getting, right? So we talked about the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics. That gives you a plethora of information. You can look up the city beforehand. We talked about ChatGPT. ChatGPT will, in an instant, pull up any credible sources or any kind of, and it attaches a link to it that gives you a direct link to the URL to go in and find more on that particular piece that it provides. We also talked about making sure that you've got access to publicly available demographic data. We've got websites like PolicyMap, the U.S. Census Bureau, right? These are other ones. And then we talked about the 4-week forecast. Get ahead of the game. Start planning your week, your month of what cities you're going to go into, and pull for those areas already. Okay, I can tell you, if you do this all correctly, you're going to get it done in about 45, 50 minutes. Okay. Then the last thing I wanted to mention was the mindset. Okay. There is a delay that happens whenever you are coming into the office and your leads aren't exported, right? You want to make sure those are exported. You get into the call clinic. There's something magical that happens when you're just every single week coming in and getting ready to dial instead of having to go through the delay of waiting for your leads to export. It is, trust me on this. And then the other thing is, by knowing what cities you're going to be going into already, that just allows you to keep the momentum going, right? You've had a hard week. You don't have to worry about exporting because you already did it 2 weeks ago. You don't got to worry about thinking, oh, what cities do I got to go to? I did it all 2 weeks ago. It's already done. So it creates a solid, seamless process. So, team, I'm excited. Next week, we're going to be diving into the call clinic. You don't want to miss it. There's a couple of small things we're going to really dive into, but I think it's going to bring a whole lot of value. So thank you so much for today. Brian, I'll pass it over to you.
Yeah, Bruce, thank you, man. That was great. Guys, as I mentioned, this is going to be recorded. I was watching some of y'all, when you're on your phone, some of the PowerPoints are hard to see. So later on, you'll be able to log in from your laptop. You can see it full screen. You also don't have to be in danger. I was seeing some of you guys driving and looking down and looking up, looking down, looking up. Please be careful on the road when you're out there, guys. For these trainings, we try to do it 30 minutes as best as you can, be somewhere apart so you can take notes. Bruce, there were several things that I picked up on that I just want to reiterate. If y'all will give me these last 4 minutes, I'll try to do it in 3, and we'll end a minute early, which will be a record breaker in all meetings. Number 1, the first thing you started with, Bruce, in planning was get out of your area. What I have found is most people do the majority of walk-ins near the office. Now, I'm not saying that we shouldn't work around the office. You just shouldn't work 4 days around the office. And so if I've got a day that I'm working around the office and I'm going to be doing my follow-ups every week around the office based on the population, because some of our offices in smaller territories, you wouldn't be able to spend 52 days every year in that area. But he said, pull a route 60 miles, 90 miles, 100, an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours out, and extract those leads and start working those areas. Because here's what I'm going to tell you. Less people are working those areas. You have less times that you walk in to say somebody else walked in. So get outside of your immediate area. That was big to me. Researching the statistics, I never thought about doing that. I love that. And you mentioned you would get a better lead. Well, what really makes the lead better is you. So your preparation for the lead being better is because it's a niche market. Like a lot of people don't know that Piggly Wigglies and IGAs are franchised, as are Starbucks. And there's tons of chains that are actually franchised. That I worked at Piggly Wiggly years ago whenever I was in high school. I could hit Piggly Wigglies and be able to connect with my history of working there. So it becomes a niche market. Maybe you came out of construction. Maybe you came out of electrical. Maybe you came out of education. It's a niche market. You can also use the statistics to determine what the competition is in the area. As Bruce said, when there's more industry, there's more benefit competition. Everybody wants a leg up. And at the same time, when there's more businesses that are like-minded in the community, you have a better chance of getting referrals or using your current list of your walk-ins for the day to get a referral from a walk-in when you say, well, hey, by the way, I'm supposed to be seeing old Bruce Leali down here at Leali Plumbing. Do you know Bruce? Because I'm in a plumbing business talking to the DM, and most plumbers know plumbers, and electricians know electricians. And so it's good for referrals. Export before call clinic. Export before call clinic. It's 7:59. I got to wrap this up. Check your credit. I'm going to check the credits. Last thing, I never thought about Bruce selecting the leads that don't have a DM, but hello, if we're making the pack call, getting the data updated, most people skip the leads that don't have a DM's name in Sales Genie. By selecting that, you're going to get leads that most people have not called on. And when you dial, here's how I always dialed when I had a lead that didn't have a DM. I just need to verify 2 more things real quick. Do y'all still have about 15 full-time employees? Great. And I show, actually, I don't have anybody here listed as DM. Who's the current decision maker regarding benefits there? So I almost use it like I'm updating my data. I'm missing something, right? I don't want to go in it and just, because I'm only updating records in the county, right? So whenever I go through it, I ask for the address. I let them know who I am. I verify the employees. I verify the decision. Well, never mind. I don't have a decision maker listed. By the way, who is the decision maker regarding benefits? You update it in your data. Now you have it for your walk-ins. All right, guys, I did not break the record. 34 minutes, 8 o'clock. This will be recorded. It'll be sent to your ADs later. It'll be on YouTube later. Be careful on the road. Be productive. Have a great day. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Thank you, Bruce.
My pleasure. See everyone.